Buenos días a todos. Muchas gracias por estar aquí conectados en este seminario del Laboratorio de Futuros en Bioenergía. En esta versión del 29 de julio. Ya va llegando Mitsirani también al seminario. En esta ocasión tenemos a Nirav Kosamia, que nos está visitando en el Laboratorio de Futuros en Bioenergía. Él es ingeniero químico, egresado del Colegio de Ingeniería de Valsad en la India, y tiene una maestría en tecnología del Instituto de Tecnología de la Universidad de Nirma, también en India. Él también cuenta con formación técnica como ingeniero de proceso, tanto en la industria de procesos como farmacéutica, tiene varios años de experiencia y actualmente él es candidato a doctor por parte de la Universidad de Lakehead en Canadá, trabajando bajo la dirección del profesor Sudip Rakshit, que es, digamos, un buen conocido del laboratorio. Y actualmente Nirav está realizando una estancia de investigación en el laboratorio que está financiada por la Fundación MITAX de Canadá. La razón de esta estancia fue para explorar algunas ideas que trabajamos en común, tanto el profesor Rakshit como nosotros en el laboratorio, que tienen que ver con las técnicas de análisis de sostenibilidad en biorefinerías. Y pues bueno, creo que Nirav nos va a platicar un poco cuál es la perspectiva que él ha tomado en este sentido, un tanto, digamos, contenciosa. Espero que sea interesante la presentación que nos va a hacer. Bien, pues sí, sin más, Nirav, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
So, I hope everyone able to see my screen right now. Okay. First of all, thank you, Professor Arturo, for giving me this opportunity to present in front of you guys. So today I'm going to give a talk on recent trends in biorefining and bioprocessing from techno-economic analysis, life cycle assessment, and scale-up perspective. Throughout this talk, I'm going to start with introduction and background. Then probably in a few slides, I'm going to discuss the burden shifting from various aspects of sustainability. Then I'm going to cover the latest challenges associated in the various areas of biorefining and bioprocessing, and followed by potential platform chemicals, which we can also target apart from bioethanol. And then we will going to see the case study based example of biosuccinic acid production. And at the last, I'm going to present LCA followed by monetary valuation of assessed environmental impact. So the ultimate, in a broader frame, the reason for this presentation is that to make aware everyone about recent challenges faced by biorefining, including the history and what are the future prospects to make the bio-based economy dream into reality. So at the beginning of my presentation, I would like to start with this one image. As you can see that a suited booted gentleman is somewhere hitchhiking on the middle of the road. And this particular image is from Pacific Northwest, Beaverton, United States in 1973. The reason why this gentleman asking for the lift is that due to increased fossil oil prices in 1973 due to oil embargo, or more specifically, due to the formation of OPEC. We can trace the development of biorefinery with this particular event called oil embargo. You know, at that time, due to the tremendous fluctuation in fossil fuel prices, the world realizes that there is a need of an option which can compete the fossil-based route, you know, and the researcher all over the world, they concerted the research in an ultimate goal for the development of a biorefinery processes, which can start from the renewable feedstocks, you know. Apart from that, sadly, even more than the 4 decades, one of the most earliest endeavor of this particular area, that is the development of ethanol from lignocellulosic biomass, does not make successful widespread all over the world. However, there are some countries like Brazil and United States successfully demonstrated ethanol as a liquid fuel for the transportation. But this particular route for the development is from the first generation feedstock. In addition, a lot of subsidies and government background is supported for this particular innovation. One of the most prime example for this, that is the renewable identification number, or in a short term, it's REIN, imposed by state government. There are some areas or roadblocks which is identified in the last few decades, which includes higher capital cost, higher operating costs, technical immaturity, and scale-up challenges, which act as a roadblock for the successful demonstration of this field into reality. In addition, here you can see one graph which is presented market volume versus market price. So you can recall that ethanol is a major limelight at the beginning of this particular area, but in the last decade, the major shift is happened from bioethanol to special platform chemicals and the biopharmaceutical bioproducts. So here, this particular graph is categorized into 3 zones. The first zone is high volume, low price. Second is middle volume, middle price. And third is that is low volume, high price products, So here you can see that bioethanol is having the highest market demand among all the available bioproducts. However, the price of bioethanol is very less compared to other products. Completely on the another side, there are some biopharmaceutical products which is having a very, very higher market price. But at the same time, the market volume is very, very low. So it is very, very important to choose a bioproduct which in a long-term perspective having a medium market demand as well as medium market price if we are really thinking about sustainable approach. So it is very important to choose a bioproduct from this particular zone, or you may call it as a sweet spot. There are some examples like glutamic acid, lactic acid, xylitol, succinic acid, and 1,3-propanediol falls into this particular zone. In addition, it is not that bioproducts are developed from the renewable feedstock, which directly signifies that those products are completely sustainable. To make any product sustainable, it is very essential that the product should be sustainable in 3 aspects of sustainability, that is techno-economic, environment, and the social aspect. However, the jugglery is over here that it is very difficult to make a balance between all the 3 aspects of sustainability. For say, if we want to improve the process economy aspect, there might be a chance that we have to compromise with the environmental sustainability or the social sustainability. Or the other way, if we want to improve the environmental sustainability, we might lose the grip on economic aspect. So this particular phenomena is known as a burden shifting or a trade-off. And it's a really challenging thing to make a balance between all the aspects of sustainability. Here you can see the general process schematic of various sections of a biorefinery. It's a very, very general, not the specific. So why I presented this process scheme over here, that I want to say that the success or the failure of a biorefinery depends on a cautious selection, what we made at each and every stage shown here. Starting from feedstock, we can go with the first generation feedstock or the second generation feedstock. We have various options available at the pre-treatment level. We can choose a different configuration for hydrolysis and the fermentation. The same applies for the product recovery and product verifications too. On the top of this particular square, you can see there are some options I highlighted into the dotted square. Apart from that, it is also very important that shall we consider the supporting areas like enzyme production, combined heat and generation power unit, which provides the energy to run the biorefinery operation in this particular setup or not. These things completely change the picture of the success or the failure of the biorefinery. Apart from that, there are also some areas which hamper the growth section-wise, which needs to overcome, or you may consider as the challenges which is associated with each and every section. Here, For say the pre-treatment, the generation of a humic substances or the cost associated with the commercialization of a pre-treatment on a larger scale, which is one of the most important issue. If we talk about hydrolysis, thermal stability of enzyme product inhibition, enzyme cost, the absorption of enzyme on the surface of the lignin or the biomass, that is one of the prime hurdles associated with it. Apart from that, there are issues associated with the fermentation too. Issue is the wrong word in a true sense. The right word is that is the challenges which needs to overcome. For say, there is a need of a development of such kind of a microorganism which simultaneously utilize both the C6 and C5 sugars for a same product yield, tolerance with the inhibitors. Those kind of aspects are associated with the fermentation. If we talk about product recovery and purification, which is also consume a major part of the cost associated with the final product price. Then, if we talk about, there are some other aspects which needs to incorporate or which needs to address, starting from the laboratory phase to pilot scale up to even the commercialization scale for the successful demonstration. For say, unlike chemical reactions or a chemical plant, this particular field is completely deal with the live microorganism, which adds the complexity in this particular configuration. So it is very important to address the data related to sterility or regulatory requirement associated with this field. Apart from that, the feedstock logistics also plays a vital role in this particular genre of industry. So these things needs to address for the successful demonstration of biorefinery. So up to the last slide, I presented some of the challenges faced by the biorefinery. And from now onwards, I'm going to discuss about how we can implement or how we can incorporate all those aspects too for the successful demonstration of the biorefinery. So as I mentioned earlier, that biorefinery, one of the most essential challenge associated with this area is that maturity of technology, and there is a need to develop one particular kind of a scale or a metric which measures the maturity of any bioprocess which produce platform chemicals or any other bioproducts. So there are some metrics are available right now, and one of them is the TRL, and the full form that is technology readiness level. So that particular concept is developed by NASA initially to assess the maturity of technology related to space, and later on these metrics adopted by everyone for all the field of science. So the minimum level of technology maturity, that is TRL level 1, and the highest level, that is TRL 9. And each and every step in this particular figure represents the development of technology. So the question is that where exactly the production of platform chemicals stands in this particular TRL level. So the answer is that usually majority of the platform chemicals fall in between TRL level 5 to TRL level 9. It means that, or it signifies that majority of the products are already demonstrated onto the lab scale, but it still needs to demonstrate onto the commercial level, or some of them are already commercialized in a real world application. Here I presented some of the potential chemicals which can produce from the biomass along with its technology readiness level. As you can see here, that 1,3-propanediol, 1,4-butanediol, lactic acid, ethylene, succinic acid, and ethylene glycol shows a tremendous amount of a maturity, which can having a potential for the successful demonstration. However, here I want to draw your attention that this TRL level is more influenced by the feedstock we are using over here. So if we are using a corn glucose here, this TRL level is 8 to 9. But if we change this particular feedstock, this TRL level completely change, or major influence we can see by changing the feedstock. Apart from that, another important aspect of biorefinery is that to utilize all the components of a biomass, main components like cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin. So one concept is derived, that is the integrated multi-product biorefinery. And you can see the figure over here. I presented one example of multi-product biorefinery. So here you can see that if we start with the lignocellulosic biomass, this particular blue square is a main biorefinery which consumes the C6 sugar, which basically derived from the cellulose after the pre-treatment and hydrolysis. So we are producing the main product from the C6 sugar, and we diverted the C5 sugar, which basically derived from hemicellulose, for the production of co-products. Here, as you can see, that lignin is also diverted to CHP for the production of electricity and heat, which provides the power to run the biorefinery operation. Apart from that, the wastewater which will generate it to this particular biorefinery is diverted to wastewater treatment plant, and by the means of anaerobic digestion, which produce the biogas, which is also utilized for the electricity and heat generation. Here you can see that I am trying to utilize all the fractions of biomass, like conventional fractionation unit or in petroleum refinery. So the question will be there, what are the co-products and what are the main products we can produce from the C5 sugar as well as lignin? So here I presented some of the example which we can target from the C5 stream as well as lignin stream. It is not that we can only produce this thing. There are variety of products we can produce, but I presented one of the most highly cited in a Scopus journal or publication which target this kind of a products over here. So here you can see that we can target PHA, acetic acid, phosphorus, xylitol, lactic acid from C5 stream, or you may say in a broader sense from hemicellulose, and lignin can be diverted apart from CHP for vanillin production too. So why I presented this concept is that there is a need of incorporation of this kind of integrations too. Like for say in a conventional chemical industry, which is completely, you may say, as a TRL level 9, majority of the chemical industry at TRL level 9, because they also integrate the mass integration, heat integration, and all those kind of phenomena. We can also try to adopt this kind of strategies in a real scale application of biorefineries. In addition, here I wanted to show the real scale and what exactly up-to-date status of biorefinery on a commercial scale all over the world. So here you can see there are some products I listed over here, and you can see the capacity as well as the feedstock and the location where exactly these biorefineries are situated. So right now, sadly, majority of this biorefinery is either idle or not in operation, And one of the most important thing I would like to draw your attention over here is that one similarity I found during the operation opening year and the closing year is that the success or the failure is also depends on the fossil fuel prices. When the crude oil or the barrel prices are higher, these kind of things are emerged. So you can see the majority of the opening year will be start from 2006 to 2014. This is a complete observation. And when the crude oil prices plunge down, this particular refinery is having an issue to survival, So right now they are either lose of taxpayers' money or they change their corporate plans in a real-time requirement. So this is also one thing I would like to draw your attention over here. So as Eugen Kleiner said once, that there is a time when panic is an appropriate response, and there is a need to develop, or there is a need to provide a better response to avoid such kind of a failures for a taxpayer's money, And so thus there is a need of a framework which incorporates all the aspects which I mentioned earlier in my earlier slides, starting from multi-product biorefinery, process economy, emission, heat integration, even from the starting scale or from the lab scale development. my research is focusing for the development of this kind of a platform and to apply this platform for a various framework in this particularly for biosuccinic acid. And you can see that there is no monetary valuation associated with any literature study. So what I did, I take the Const tower as a starting material for my as a starting feedstock for my biorefinery configuration, and I try to apply the integrated multi-product biorefinery concept in my design stage, and I evaluated 3 scenarios, which you can see in this particular slide. So the difference between all these 3 scenarios is the diversion of a C5 sugar for the various products. So here you can see that I'm taking the Const tower after the pre-treatment stage. I'm taking the C5 sugar as well as C6 sugar for the production of biosuccinic acid, and I'm diverting lignin for the production of soluble electricity. If we talk about scenario 2, instead of producing biosuccinic acid from C5 sugar, here I'm diverting C5 sugar for the production of furfural, which is also one of the middle market price and middle market volume products, along with succinic acid. So here I have a 3 products: biosuccinic acid, furfural, and electricity. In a scenario number 3, I'm diverting my C5 sugar into wastewater treatment plant for the production of biogas, which will later on transfer to the CHP along with lignin for the production of electricity and steam.
Se reincorpora. Tenemos 23 reconexiones. Y bueno, continuamos.
Okay.
Mira, we can continue.
Okay.
I think we have to use the time that we have available for this.
Okay.
When Tirani returns, you can continue with the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, so I will start, right? For scenario 3, I mentioned like here with like from last scenario here, instead of diverting C5 sugar for the furfural production, I'm diverting C5 sugar for the biogas production, which is later on diverted to CHP for the production of steam and electricity. And whatever the steam, whatever the electricity remaining at the end of the biorefining operation, which should be used for the selling, for the district heating application. So these are my 3 scenarios, and I studied from the Const tower. And from the next slide, I'm going to present the economic aspects associated with all these 3 scenarios. So here I presented the minimum selling price. Minimum selling price is something which is the optimum point at which we can sell our product, either without profit or without loss. So that is the bare minimum price we can sell at our product over here. So as you can see that from scenario 1, we can get the MSP for biosuccinic acid, that is 2.28. For scenario 2, that is 3.33, and for scenario 3, it's 3.19. So we observe that here scenario 1 gives us the least amount of MSP per kg biosuccinic acid. Apart from that, if we think about the payback period of each and every scenario, the same thing applies with scenario 1, 2, and the highest is for scenario 2, which is also produced furfural. If we talk about the utility requirement scenario wise, you can see over here. Let me start. Yeah, you can see over here that highest utility requirement is for scenario 2. Apart from that, power requirement is also highest for scenario 2, and the least amount is required for scenario 1. So from both of these perspectives, scenario 1 is the most feasible solution, followed by scenario 2 and scenario 3. Here I presented some of the result associated with the operating cost. So for the general audience, I would like to say that the operating cost is something which is associated with the operation, which includes the raw material cost, like the operation activities like wages and salaries and all those stuff. So we can see that the total operating cost associated with scenario 1, that is $1.44 per kg. For scenario 2, it's $2.47 per kg, and for scenario 3, it's $1.90 per kg. If we talk about the contribution into the variable operating cost, which signifies the cost associated with the raw materials, scenario-wise, here we can see that the maximum contribution in each and every scenario, that is the chemicals associated with the pre-treatment and the detoxification part, followed by the enzyme cost and the nutrients requirement for the fermentation operations. So here from this particular graph, we can identify that selection of type of pre-treatment. For say, if we use the dilute acid pre-treatment, which demands a higher amount of chemicals, or more specifically the acids, which contribute the highest over here. But instead of those kind of a reaction, if we use the steam explosion and all those kind of a physical pre-treatment processes which demands less amount of chemicals, we can improve over here. Apart from that, you can see that this area also needs attention, which clearly signifies the second highest contribution into the total variable operating cost in each and every scenario. Here, apart from that, for say any kind of this kind of designs is first of all structured based on some of the assumptions, and it is very essential to address some sort of uncertainties associated with this kind of assessment. So here I performed the sensitivity analysis, which is associated here in figure A. You can see that if we reduce the enzyme cost by 50%, the total variable operating cost comes 1.29. And if we increase that, it comes up to 1.59. So these things clearly signifies that the changes or the improvement in this particular aspect clearly reduce the variable operating cost of biosuccinic acid. On the contrary, if the performance is degraded, the value of the variable operating cost is increased. Apart from that, I also measure the net present value of the entire project with respect to this particular parameter. So as you can see over here that if we improve the biosuccinic acid yield, that is having a very highest influence onto the net present value, followed by minimum selling price. Here you can see that the loan interest. So here why I incorporate the sensitivity analysis of loan interest, because a lot of countries are having a different policies just to promote this kind of a renewable feedstock based synthesis route for say Brazil and United States. So if those countries reduce the loan interest, which finance this kind of a project, which is also influence the profit or the sustainability of this particular bioproduct. So you can see that the improvement in yield is having a highest influence over here, which ultimately signifies us that there is a need of a fermentation microorganism which gives us the better yield from the unit feedstocks. Now I would like to address some aspects associated with the other aspect, that is the environmental sustainability. So there are basically, we can address this aspect up to various levels. The majority of the studies address the impact associated with any activity onto the environmental up to the midpoint level. So midpoint level contains the damage oriented, problem oriented aspect. So, for say, if I'm producing 1 kg succinic acid, what are the problems I'm going to create to environment? So problems like global warming, water use, water ecotoxicity, degradation, particulate matter formations. So this category or the midpoint categories are specifically for the problem oriented. But we can also address this environmental impact up to the damage oriented point of view. So here, these particular things are segregated into 3 areas of protection. So ultimate end effects. So who are the receptors of this particular problem? So the three receptors are identified into the endpoint categories, that is the damage to human health, damage to ecosystem, and the resources availability. So you can see that the areas of protection covers over here are, that is the human, ecosystem, and the resources, which covers basically the entire ecosystem. Apart from that, one important thing I would like to mention over here is that those midpoint impact category, which I presented in the last slide, those are presented in a different unit. So you can see that every category is having a different unit. And from the latest slide, you can see that our techno-economics data are majority into the dollar unit. So for say, as a decision maker, if the question comes up to you that what to choose and what pays it, then probably you might be confused because both the aspects are in a different unit, you know. So it is very important to convert all this data into the dollar unit, just to make everything onto the same pinch, you know. So one aspect was introduced, that is monetary valuation of this environmental impact. In addition, we can also convert the midpoint into final dollar value, as well as endpoint also converted into the dollar value. So in a broader sense, this particular thing, the conversion of environmental impacts into the monetary unit, it's a highly complex and the debatable subject. So some environmental sustainability experts are not in the favor of this thing. Some are in the favor of this particular thing. So it's a debatable as well as the complex subject, you know. But in a broader sense, there are basically three approaches used to convert this environmental impact into the dollar unit, which starts from damage cost, which is basically evaluate the damages in terms of money. So for say, if I damage this amount of environment, it will give me the cost based on this kind of philosophy. The second one is, that is the marginal amendment cost. So this approach is based on, to reduce this particular emission, how much I have to pay, which is basically willingness to pay. There are some countries like Canada is one of the most prime examples, when there is a social cost for the carbon emission. In the last year, the price of a social cost for carbon emission, that is 50 Canadian dollar per ton of carbon dioxide emission, and still governments are planning to take it up to 140 Canadian dollar per ton till 2030. So these are some countries are adopting this kind of approaches too. And the third approach, that is the indirect cost, which is completely based on the carbon policies for the 10-year period of time or a 15-year period of a time. So these three particular broader approach used for the monetary valuation. Apart from that, this is a very full of content slide, but the reason why I presented over here is that I just want to familiarize you guys with the various aspects or the various methodologies, which is primarily developed based on all the last three aspects I presented. So this particular methodologies, you can see that in the first row, and some important characteristic associated with the individual methods of monetization. However, here I would like to draw your attention that this particular methods are specific for specific region or specific countries, you know. As you can see that ASEK is specifically for Sweden. This particular are for Netherlands, Swedish tax, Europe, and global, and all like that. Apart from that, the currencies of that particular methodologies are specific to that spatial boundaries, you know, and the variation into the per kg carbon dioxide cost is also, you cannot say it's a tremendously high majority of the product, but here eco value is having a marginal difference over here. But apart from that, they are also very specific up to the certain level. So as I mentioned, this thing is a very controversial and which is debatable. But the ultimate point is that for the conversion is that to facilitate the decision maker or the policy maker to give an exact idea, like what is the environmental cost associated with this particular thing. So which can help them to make that decision, you know. That's the, in a broader sense, that is the idea for the monetization. And at the last, I would like to highlight some of the conclusion or the takeaway from this entire talk, that we have to target the bioproduct. It is these are the recommendation I highlighted over here, that it is recommended that we can choose the bioproduct from middle volume, middle price. Apart from that, there is a need to incorporate the sustainability matrices, which measures the maturity of the process, like TRL, into the framework, or needs to assess before the commercialization stage. Apart from that, incorporation of multi-product biorefinery, which uses all the main component of lignocellulosic biomass, is also essential part. And the most important thing is that we have to compare the particular route or the particular product with the conventional counterpart, more specifically the fossil-based counterpart, to assess the competitiveness. Either our route will be sustained in a market or not, you know. And the third aspect, that what I presented my framework, which give the results from all the aspects of sustainability in a single unit, which facilitates the decision maker for the better decision making process. So these are the recommendations I figured out from my initial work of my research. And if you want to get this presentation, you can scan it over here. I'll keep this thing for 30 seconds. So you just simply scan it over here and you can get the PDF of this entire presentation. So thank you. And thank you for your attention and giving me this platform to present. And now I will gonna take the questions from the audience.
Thank you very much, Nirav. It's a very good presentation. Gracias a todos. Ahora es la sesión de preguntas y respuestas. Las preguntas las pueden hacer en inglés o en español. Si quieren hacer una pregunta directamente a Nirav, pueden utilizar, levantar la mano aquí directamente con las herramientas de Zoom. Y si no, pueden escribirlas directamente en inglés o en español en el chat para yo poderlas leer y presentárselas a Nirav. Igual si alguien quisiera que se tradujera una pregunta del español al inglés, también se puede hacer. Entonces, si quien quiera participar o quien tenga alguna pregunta, puede hacerlo en este momento para Nirav. I am telling everyone that everyone can make questions, so let's see if somebody wants to ask you something about your work. El doctor Arturo ha levantado la mano. Entonces, doctor Arturo, si tiene alguna pregunta, la puede hacer directamente utilizando su micrófono.
Okay. Pues mientras se anima el resto de la concurrencia a formular preguntas, ya sea en inglés o en español, como gusten. Si es por escrito en español, con gusto la traducimos, ya sea Michiani o yo, o si la quieren hacer en inglés directamente, también igual, sin problema, escrito o hablada. En el Inter, yo sí le voy a preguntar algo a Nirav. Nirav, I'm going to ask you something. First, I'll do it in Spanish.
Okay.
Then I'll translate it to you, right?
Yeah.
O sea, yo lo que veo aquí en la información que nos presentó Nirav es pues que todavía está esa dicotomía, esa separación entre la forma en cómo se están tomando decisiones digamos, a nivel global con respecto a estas cuestiones de biorefinación, aún con la evidencia que tenemos del efecto que está teniendo la producción de dióxido de carbono en el cambio climático, ¿sí? Creo que es de llamar muchísimo la atención esa gráfica o esa tabla que nos muestra Nirav, en donde por ahí de principios de los 2010, 2012, a raíz de las políticas que se habían establecido en algunos países para utilizar residuos agrícolas, empezaron a surgir fábricas de diferentes cosas, o sea, no solamente alcohol, sino también otros asuntos. 2012, 2014, y luego con la subida de los precios del petróleo, aún con el apoyo de algunos gobiernos en ese sentido, con el apoyo financiero, empezaron a cerrar cuando baja el precio del petróleo. 2014, 2016, los que trabajábamos ya en estas cosas, nosotros esperábamos una contrarrespuesta por parte de entidades gubernamentales como para que eso no pasara, pero no sucedió. Y ahora, en el 2019-2020, yo lo que alcanzo a ver es pues, que sigue esa dicotomía extraña, porque los precios otra vez están muy altos, en los precios del petróleo crudo están muy altos, $100, 95, $100, pero no hay esa respuesta por parte del sector productivo para reincorporar de nuevo estas cuestiones de biorefinación. Más aún, y eso me preocupa, más aún, pues con los mensajes que estamos recibiendo por parte de otras entidades como la Agencia Internacional de Energía o el IPCC, en donde dicen, bueno, pues es que o hacemos algo en el corto plazo, nos quedan 30 meses para hacer algo en cuanto a la reducción de gases de efecto invernadero, y no pasa, ¿sí? Entonces, pues la pregunta va un poco por ahí. ¿Cuál sería tu opinión, Nirav, en ese sentido? ¿Cómo hacerle para poder lograr que esa economía basada en la economía famosa circular o la bioeconomía que decimos, pues se lleve a cabo, sea una realidad? Con eso sería termino la pregunta. Al momento le voy a preguntar a Nirav a ver si entendió, y si no, pues le trato de resumir rápido el comentario y la pregunta. Did you get the idea, Nirav?
I beg your pardon, sir. I
That's fine. Well,
yeah.
I was trying to summarize what I saw with the information that you were giving us in terms of how during the early 2010s there were factories being opening, and then suddenly with the rise of the price in the crude oil, again they closed down. But now we have again the increase in the oil prices, but I don't see any activity in this sector of the economy reopening or trying to do something similar to what was happening at that time, which is worrying for me. It worries me even more that now we are receiving the information, we are getting the messages from other instances in the world, for instance, the International Energy Agency or the IPCC, telling us that climate change is something that is going to be unavoidable unless we do something very quickly, right?
Yeah.
So in that sense, what's missing, according to your criteria, what's missing for making this bio-based economy a reality?
In a broader sense, sir, first of all, I'm give this answer in a two answers. So first of all, addressing your first question, that why no economic activity still we observe, as right now even the fossil fuel prices are increasing. The reason is that from 2000 to 2012, or like if you see these things from the decade wise, the first decade is exactly we reach up to the commercialization scale at that particular period of time. But probably there might be a possibility that we did not get that particular range or we did not get that particular idea that the dependency or the success or the failure of this particular zone with the fossil fuel prices and the closure of that unit as a result in the later decade. From the starting of 2012 to 2019. Now, probably I would like to address your second question that now the prices are plunging again, plunge up again. But there might be a chance there is not a wide changes for say, probably after that, they probably decide a bandwidth. In that bandwidth, the fossil fuel prices are increase or decrease. Then we can develop the commercial scale biorefinery. So what I particularly I want to address in future probably is that we have to first of all identify the bandwidth where the fossil fuel prices increase or decrease, and at the same time, on the same level, what is the success and the failure rate of biorefinery with respect to the fossil fuel prices plunges. Apart from that, another aspect to see these things in terms of pollution. In terms of pollution is that we can also address this thing with respect to the carbon dioxide emission. But for that, what exactly I'm trying to tell you is that we need to convert this emission in terms of cost, which I really tried to do that thing. In addition, what I'm missing, answering to your third question, the social aspect. We do not have a social policy structure as of now available up to the full-fledged scale, like environmental aspect and the techno-economical aspect. Because what I personally believe that for the real scale acceptance of this entire route, I think the social aspect plays a vital role, but we are still lacking some sort of grip in that particular aspect. So that's my opinion on your questions.
Thank you, Nirav. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hay una pregunta en el chat de Agustino Martínez Antonio y pregunta en español primero. ¿Hay problemas en usar GMOs, no organismos genéticamente modificados, en los procesos de biorefinerías? Me refiero a restricciones legales o por normativa. Se lo voy a traducir a Nirav. Agustino Martinez Nirav is asking if there's any problem from using genetic modified organisms for a biorefinery process, and he's talking about legal restrictions. So, do you know something about it?
Yeah. So first of all, as I mentioned in one of my slides, you can see here that regulatory requirements. So for say, I am completely agree with Martina's question that if we want to improve the process economy, then we have to ultimately develop sort of microorganism which gives a higher yield, but there are also some constraints associated with regulatory which needs to overcome, and that particular regulatory framework is also not developed up to this particular stage. So there should be a proper guideline for that regulatory perspective, which needs to develop, like chemical industry or like the pharmaceutical plants or something like that. So here, that is also one of the challenges which needs to overcome over here, that regulatory requirement. I already mentioned over here, and completely there is also one aspect, as Martina correctly said, that one of the important area for the improvement of the bio-based economy, that is also the genetically modified microorganism development, which consumes both the C6 and C5 sugar, as well as which is having a long-term robust durability with respect to thermal stability and product inhibition, and from all those perspectives. So I'm completely agree with that, but still we need to develop this framework from the regulatory perspective.
Muy bien, hace otra pregunta que creo que esta la podrá contestar mejor el doctor Arturo. Dice, otra pregunta en sí, ¿alguien sabe si en México hay incentivos o restricciones normativas en biorefinerías, sobre todo respecto a la generación de bioenergía?
Pues Pues más bien alguien de los asistentes sabe contestar esta pregunta. ¿Alguien que quiera levantar la mano en ese sentido? Bueno, yo hasta donde tengo entendido, el gobierno mexicano no ha establecido su política en lo que se refiere al uso de biorefinerías en México, no solamente para la cuestión de bioenergía, sino para la producción de bioproductos en general. Lo que yo me he enterado es que pues sí hay casos particulares de sectores que han tratado de encontrar mecanismos que les permitan entrar a este tipo de cosas, ¿sí? Más allá de o al margen de una posible política establecida por el gobierno mexicano. Y las razones que se han esgrimido son básicamente económicas, ¿sí? Por ejemplo, el caso del sector azucarero, donde se han tratado de explorar formas de utilizar los excedentes de producción de azúcar en México para producir otros bioproductos, ¿sí? Y hasta donde todavía están pues negociando esa parte desde el punto de vista, digamos, económico. ¿Sí? Desde el punto de vista ambiental y social, pues no hay algo en donde. Entonces, en ese sentido, yo creo que pues sí hay cosas que explorar ahí que podrían apoyar a la producción de bioproductos en México.
Sí, hasta donde yo sé tampoco hay ninguna restricción, sin embargo tampoco hay incentivos, no hay ni incentivos ni restricciones. Hay relativamente en la cuestión de biorefinerías está todo muy en pañales realmente y están algunas cosas para la promoción de los bioenergéticos, como la ley esta de la promoción a los bioenergéticos, sin embargo pues hasta ahorita es más que nada letra muerta porque no ha habido muchísima ni promoción, ni proyectos, ni nada está parado. Entonces, pues es una área de oportunidad.
Técnicamente está en revisión. La ley de promoción de bioenergéticos técnicamente está en revisión en la Cámara de Diputados.
Ok. ¿Alguna otra pregunta que tengan? Any other question? Nos pregunta Luis que ¿cuál es la opinión del exponente sobre en el corto plazo se podrá iniciar la producción de etanol 2G sin apoyos y subsidios? Nirav, Luis is asking you what is your opinion about where the production of second generation ethanol it's gonna be something real in the short term without subsidies and without any kind of subsidy for the government. Do you think it's gonna be something real in the mid lane or the short?
I cannot clearly say that because these things is a mutual. Lot of things matter on this thing, right? Like the government policies or a lot of kind of feedstocks availability, food versus fuel price debate. But if you are using second generation, then it will be not the issue. But as a personally, I as a researcher, it's very hard to say that or to predict the future and that's the real motive of this presentation, that we can say the probability, but we cannot say anything firm that after 5 years or after 10 years bioethanol or any other platform chemical become reality or not. However, in my personal belief, in future, because right now seeing the state policies and the world policies with respect to climate change and all, it will become the reality, because there might be a very, very less chance then government will withdraw this kind of policies by seeing the near future, unless something very big tragedy happen or something like that. But it is very, very difficult to predict the exact future after 5 years or 10 years, because it's a lot of things matter, which are not even our prediction or even our control, Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nirav. So we are running out of time. Maybe we don't have time for another question. Sorry for the inconvenience, but now I'm going to share my screen so we can know the next seminar. Voy a compartir mi pantalla para poder pasar el próximo seminario. Aquí estamos entregando reconocimiento a Nirav.
Thank you,
Arturo.
Nirav. Thank you very much for such an interesting presentation. And,
Yeah.
Very interesting
And
discussion.
I would also like to thank the entire team, as well as Professor Arturo Mentezirani, for giving me this platform to present my initial work in front of the large audience. Thank you. Thank you for the cooperation. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Entonces, para nuestra siguiente sesión, pues tenemos el gusto de poder tener con nosotros al doctor Julio Sacramento Rivero. Él está en la Universidad Autónoma de Yucatán y él pues es experto en la cuestión de evaluación de análisis de ciclo de vida y la evaluación de sustentabilidad. Entonces él nos estará presentando, nos estará acompañando en el seminario 5 el día viernes 26 de agosto a las 12 horas. Nosotros les estaremos mandando toda la información, ya saben, por las redes sociales del laboratorio, igualmente por correo electrónico, y pues esperemos les sirva, esperemos que puedan también pues transferir el conocimiento a las personas que crean que van a estar interesadas. Cualquier cosa nos lo pueden hacer llegar directamente también a nuestras redes sociales. Entonces estaremos mandando esta información vía redes sociales y correo electrónico, y cualquier cosa que necesiten, pues estamos ahí en contactos, ¿no? Esperemos que sea un gran seminario. El doctor Julio Sacramento es alguien que tiene muchísima experiencia en esto, así que no dejen de asistir al siguiente seminario.
Bien, pues muchas gracias a todos por asistir, y sí, los esperamos en el siguiente seminario. Continuaremos con este tema. Sí, algunas de las preguntas que se hicieron ahí en el chat, yo creo que las seguiremos debatiendo sobre toda esta cuestión del uso y producción de biocombustibles avanzados. Julio es algo que ha estado trabajando durante mucho tiempo, el análisis de sostenibilidad de estos biocombustibles. Entonces continuaremos con esta discusión. Después tenemos otra presentación más o menos en la misma línea, cuestiones tecnoeconómicas, y cerraremos con el mismo tema, ¿sí? La factibilidad del uso de los biocombustibles avanzados, no solamente a gran escala, sino también a mediana y pequeña. Entonces, pues bueno, espero que sea de utilidad y se ponga interesante esta discusión más adelante, y nos vemos en la próxima edición de este seminario. Muchas gracias otra vez, y muchas gracias a Rogelio Muñoz, que estuvo en los controles de esta transmisión y grabación. Nos vemos.
Gracias a todos, gracias Nirav. Nos vemos en el próximo seminario y hasta luego.